The invitation arrived on a crisp, cream-colored card, its edges gilded in gold. It was delivered not by post, but by the hand of Mr. Alistair Harrington himself, a man whose wealth was as vast as his ego. He presented it to his maid, Sarah, with a flourish that was meant to be magnanimous but felt condescending. "For your boy," he'd said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "A charity tennis match at the club tomorrow. A chance for him to see how the other half lives." Sarah had accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you, sir," her face a mask of practiced neutrality. But inside, a storm brewed. She knew Mr. Harrington. She'd cleaned his sprawling mansion for a decade, polishing away the dust of his extravagant life, all while he barely acknowledged her existence beyond a curt nod. This invitation wasn't an act of kindness, it was a performance. Her son, Leo, was to be a prop in his play of philanthropy. That evening, she handed the card to Leo. At 17, he was a study in quiet intensity, his lanky frame coiled with a wiry strength that spoke of relentless training. He read the invitation, his dark eyes scanning the elegant script. A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. "He wants to show me off," Leo said, his voice low. The poor maid's son, given a glimpse of paradise. "You don't have to go," Sarah said, her hand resting on his shoulder. The weight of her sacrifices pressed down on her. The double shifts, the missed holidays, the ache in her bones, all of it was for him, for the dream he chased with a fierce, silent passion. Leo looked at his mother, seeing the exhaustion in her eyes that she tried so hard to hide. He saw the worn-out soles of her shoes and the faint scent of bleach that always clung to her. And in that moment, his decision was forged not in anger, but in a deep, unwavering love. "No," he said, his voice firm. "I'll go." The next day, the Harrington Country Club was a dazzling spectacle of old money and new arrogance. Women in pristine white tennis dresses sipped champagne, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes. Men in crisp polos discussed stocks and mergers, their voices booming with unearned confidence. Mr. Harrington greeted Leo with a patronizing pat on the back. "Glad you could make it, son. It's a different world, isn't it?" Leo simply nodded, his gaze sweeping over the perfectly manicured grass courts. They were a far cry from the cracked public courts where he'd first learned to play, and even a step up from the state-of-the-art facilities he'd grown accustomed to. "I've put you down for a friendly match," Harrington continued, gesturing towards a court where a young man with a cocky grin was practicing his serve. "That's my son, Julian. Just a little warm-up before the main event." The implication was clear, Leo was the warm-up act, a bit of pre-show entertainment. As Leo walked onto the court, a murmur rippled through the crowd. He was dressed not in the designer gear favored by the club members, but in simple, unbranded athletic wear. His racket, though professional grade, was scuffed and worn from countless hours of practice. He was an anomaly, a disruption in their perfect, homogeneous world. Julian Harrington sauntered over to the net, his smile dripping with condescension. "Try not to embarrass yourself too much," he whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Leo didn't respond. He just met the boy's gaze with a look of unnerving calm. He took his position, bouncing the ball a few times, the rhythmic thud of familiar comfort. He closed his eyes for a second, and the world fell away. The chattering crowd, the smug faces, the weight of expectation, it all dissolved into the singular focus of the game. The story of how he got here flashed through his mind. It was a story written in sweat and sacrifice. It began with a 6-year-old boy hitting a worn tennis ball against a brick wall for hours on end. It continued with his mother working tirelessly to afford his first proper racket. It was a story of a local coach who saw a spark of genius in the boy and took him under his wing. And then came the turning point. A scout, visiting on a whim, had seen Leo play. He'd seen the raw talent, the unteachable court sense, the fire in his eyes. That had led to the impossible, a scholarship to a prestigious tennis academy in London, one with a direct pipeline to the most hallowed grounds in tennis, Wimbledon. For the past 3 years, Leo's life had been a grueling cycle of dawn training sessions on the iconic grass courts, intense physical conditioning, and studying the games of the masters. He had trained at Wimbledon. He had breathed its air, felt its history, and absorbed its lessons. He had learned to be more than just a player, he had learned to be a tactician, a warrior. Mr. Harrington and his son knew none of this. To them, he was just the maid's boy. Julian served first, a powerful, arrogant slice aimed to intimidate. To the crowd, it was a blur of yellow. To Leo, it was a story. He read the spin, the trajectory, the intent behind the ball. He moved with an economy of motion that was almost poetic, his racket meeting the ball with a clean, crisp thwack. The return was a laser-like cross-court shot that left Julian flat-footed, the ball landing perfectly in the corner. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. Julian, his face flushed with surprise, tried again. This time, he put more power into his serve. Leo returned it with even more pace, a blistering forehand that painted the line. The first set was a blur. Leo moved with a grace and precision that was breathtaking. His footwork was flawless, his shots a symphony of power and finesse. He was playing a different game, a different sport altogether. Julian, who was used to being the best at the club, was being systematically dismantled. He grew increasingly frustrated, his shots becoming wild and erratic. The score was 6-0. A bagel. In the world of tennis, it was the ultimate humiliation. Mr. Harrington, who had been laughing and joking with his friends, was now silent, his face a mask of disbelief. He watched as his son, his champion, was being utterly and completely outplayed by the boy he had invited as a charity case. During the break, Sarah, who had been watching from a discreet distance, brought Leo a water bottle. She didn't say a word, but her eyes shone with a fierce, uncontainable pride. That was all the encouragement he needed. The second set was even more brutal. Leo, now fully warmed up, unleashed the full arsenal of his skills. He hit drop shots that died just over the net, lobs that kissed the baseline, and passing shots that seemed to defy the laws of physics. He was a ghost on the court, always in the right place at the right time, his movements fluid and intuitive. The crowd, which had initially been dismissive, was now captivated. They were witnessing something special, a display of talent that was far beyond anything they had ever seen at their club. The whispers changed from "Ah, who is he?" to "Where did he come from?" The final point of the match was a masterpiece. Julian, desperate and defeated, hit a weak approach shot. Leo moved in like a predator, his eyes locked on the ball. He leaped into the air, his body uncoiling like a spring, and hit a thunderous overhead smash that echoed through the stunned silence of the club. Game, set, match. 6-0, 6-0. A double bagel. Leo walked to the net, his face impassive. He extended his hand to Julian, who, to his credit, shook it, his own hand trembling slightly. You're incredible," Julian stammered, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Leo then walked over to Mr. Harrington, who was standing by the side of the court, his face pale. "Thank you for the invitation, sir," Leo said, his voice clear and steady. "It was, as you said, a chance to see how the other half lives." He then turned and walked away, leaving a trail of shattered pride and stunned silence in his wake. He found his mother, and together, they walked out of the club, leaving the world of wealth and privilege behind them. The next day, the story was all over the local news. "Mystery teen humiliates club champion," one headline read. "The Maid's son with the golden arm," read another. Mr. Harrington, in an attempt at damage control, called Sarah into his study. He was a changed man. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a grudging respect. "Your son," he began, his voice hoarse. "Where did he learn to play like that?" Sarah looked at him, and for the first time in 10 years, she didn't feel like his maid. She felt like the mother of a champion. "He trained," she said simply. "He trained at Wimbledon." The name hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of its prestige. Wimbledon. The pinnacle of the tennis world. A place that Mr. Harrington, for all his wealth, could only ever be a spectator. In that moment, he finally understood. He hadn't invited the maid's son to a tennis match. He had invited a future king to his court, and had been taught a lesson in humility that no amount of money could ever buy. Leo's journey was far from over. The road to professional tennis was long and arduous. But as he stepped onto the practice courts the next day, the worn grip of his racket feeling like an extension of his own hand, he knew one thing for sure. He was not just the maid's son. He was a warrior. And he was ready for the battles to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspirational content. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.